Welcome to the Skincare and Food Podcast. Today we're talking about preservatives. They can be in food and they can also be in skincare. Let's grow together. I'm Amira.
And I'm Maria.
And today we are joined with Tuna, founder of Xavier Organics. Hi, Tuna.
Hi,
Good to see you. Welcome in. So in thinking about preservatives, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is artificial foods and that are there. But in all reality, we need some type of preservative for our cosmetics, even the ones that are naturally based, so that they have a longer shelf life.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the questions that I get asked a lot when I'm on the field. Are there preservative in this? What is the shelf life of this product? And I'm glad Tuna is here because he's been working on product development for at least the last couple of years or so. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tuna, but tell us a little bit about your journey.
So what I've been working on is mainly I started my own brand. It's a small indie brand. And right now, as a part, and this is after I become a formulator. Actually, my journey started from becoming a formulator, but when I decided to become formulator, understanding the products, it kind of gave me the creativity and the freedom to create something that is way more than what, way more special than what you can buy as a private label or anything that is ready-made. So this was also as a part of my training. We dive into the importance of preservatives, and the big topic about everybody's, having a preservative in a product. I don't want to touch it or something like that. But the main reason I was just going to say, the preservatives that is required, even though they may say it's synthetic or it will damage your health or any kind of bad rumor. Yes, if anything, it's like water, basically. If you drink too much water, it will die. You will die if you drink too much water. So the main point of preservatives is to, as it says, is to protect the product, increase the shelf life, especially in the natural skincare. The natural products like ingredients like cocoa butter or like mango butter or any kind of oils, they don't have an infinite shelf life. They're not made synthetic. Even the synthetics may have some kind of shelf life, because don't forget the active ingredients in it. The efficacy, by the time it will go away. It will decrease. So the main part of them is that we don't want them to go, obviously, these beautiful ingredients to go rancid. We don't want them to, your product get spoiled by mold or any kind of yeast activity. You would want them to protect it. Now, what we do with the preservatives is there's a very, very small amount that you put in. It's the whole point is to stop this microbial activities that can cause this yeast and bacteria to grow. So you don't want to have a product after 1 month going spoiled because it's preservative free. So that's the main point of it. And mainly, there are obviously a lot of preservatives out there, but there's now, because it depends on the natural or depends on the cosmetic type. If you're going natural, there are natural preservatives available. If it's a synthetic one, again, these things wouldn't damage your, they wouldn't damage your skin. They're just there to protect the product, and you wouldn't need them. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any shelf life. Anything beyond one month, it just forget about the shelf life. So, yeah, I would say. Does that explain a little bit?
Absolutely. Let's pull the thread a little bit between the differentiation between a natural preservative and a synthetic preservative.
Yeah.
I know about 20 years ago, there was an Oprah show where she mentioned parabens, that they were potentially carcinogenic.
Yeah.
There were still a lot of studies that were coming through, but I think that was the first time I really became aware of preservatives.
Yeah.
And now, just to be clear, there are naturally occurring parabens, but I'm referencing the synthetic parabens. And that caused a huge chain reaction in the industry that companies, whether their brand DNA believed it or had done research on their own, they were pulling parabens from their ingredients. And now most products, whether it's in high-end stores or drugstores, are going to have no parabens in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, ethics lecithin is another one. I mean, they are being demonized at the moment, obviously. But even having a little amount of the possibility of these things, synthetic ingredients carrying a carcinogenic element is a no-go. I mean, nowadays you can see big companies are getting sued because they didn't realize there was a risk of cancer-making elements in it. And that's valid for, obviously, for preservatives as well, like parabens, ethylene, penexetolone. There's another one. I can't really say 100% the name, sorry about that, but they're very easy. You can easily see these when you pick up a product and look at the ingredients at the back of it. So when it comes to organic or the natural preservatives, there are actually quite really industries moving forward with this, and they're really innovative preservatives coming now. So for example, one of them I'm using is called a preservative eco, and it's just made up of 3 acids, and salicylic acid, benzene alcohol, and there was another one I forgot on top of my head. But basically, these are obviously being tested, regulated, and manufacturers say it is safe to use. And obviously, for them to say that this is also suitable for natural cosmetics, they need to also go another global certification with what we call Cosmos and EcoCert. And these ones give you the confidence that they are actually they don't have any, as you say, ingredients that can cause carcinogenic or anything like that. And it has to be one of the biggest things of these. It has to come from in nature dried. So salicylic acid may come from willow bark extract. So they isolate that and then they put it there. Same with the benzyl alcohol, all these. They're some kind of derived of a plant. It's a plant. Mostly 99% is plants. I don't think there's an animal based, but yeah, or it could be a mineral based. So
yeah, vitamin E came to mind as a preservative that's natural.
Yeah. So these are basically important. You still need to add them. And the main thing of these preservatives, I would also say, is if there's any water in the product. And nowadays, if you turn any product, you will see aqua, which is a water. Number one being thing. Any toner, face toner, or any kind of maybe cream, face wash, they're all made of, like hand wash, 90% of it is made of water. So the main aim is to preserve this water not to get spoiled by yeast, mold, or bacteria, anything like that. So you need to preserve that. That's the main point of the preservatives. For oil-based products, things are a little bit easier because oils doesn't have any medium for bacteria to grow. They do get rancid, which is you don't want that to happen. So we add natural antioxidants like rosemary extract, which is really contains super high vitamin E context. Natural vitamin E, which is derived from many plants. It could be sunflower, it could be soya, or it could be other like wheat germ, for example. These just to protect the balm. Like if you're making a beautiful cocoa butter based hand balm or a cleansing balm, it's just made up of oils and waxes, you can just use vitamin E to protect it, just to increase the shelf life. Otherwise, I mean, oils, they do have longer shelf life. Again, maybe past 5-6 months, they may not be as active, or like they may go rancid. So that's the protection. So long story short, you do need preservative. They're not evil. And they will have a certain function. And what I learned from my own studies is that these are normally added less than 1% maximum. So anything 1% of a product is literally nothing. Your skin barrier is so protective that anything like that, it won't penetrate your skin. So that was just, it won't damage it. So that's why there's a big thing between eco-friendly, natural preservatives and the synthetic preservatives, because synthetic preservatives, they may not be 100% tested. It can contain these like parabens or excellence, all these have carcinogenic things in it. Where natural ones, they do have, plant-based, they do have more protection in it, and it won't have this, that's the biggest thing between synthetic and natural. It wouldn't cause you damage in the longer term, basically.
You mentioned a couple of things that was interesting: salicylic acid or acids as preservative, because we often view those as an exfoliating ingredient.
Absolutely.
So what is the percentage that you usually use for acids to be just a preservative and not turn into an exfoliant? Is there kind of like a threshold?
Yes. So, for example, salicylic acid has maximum 2% usage. If it's going to touch your skin globally, it's 2%. Anything beyond that, it's not advised. It may cause rashes, or because it's an acid at the end. Even if when you see the products, the natural, the AHA acids that you use, they may have a bit more percentage because of their tolerance is not, but salicylic acid is really potent and stringent. So 2% is what they advise, and anything beyond that is questionable. That's the ideal limit of using salicylic acid. But in preservatives, they are obviously used more, but nevertheless, you're not adding all these things into the, like, so what I want to say, this preservative has salicylic acid in it, but you're only using 1% of it. And within 1% of that drop may have maybe 30% of it, a third of it, or maybe less, has salicylic acid in it. So it won't cause, when you're formulating, obviously, you have to consider that. So if you're adding 2% of natural salicylic acid, you have to think about the bit that comes from the preservative itself. So it's a little bit of math there you have to do, but you have to be totaling that ideal amount with 2%.
Right. And the other element that you brought up was alcohol. And I get a lot of questions on this one also on the field, because everybody thinks alcohol is super drying. It's really damaging to the skin. Can you talk a little bit about how the differences in different types of alcohol can function?
So the alcohol is, like alcohol itself is not, how I say, witch hazel has an alcohol for example. It could be, they say witch hazel a little bit sometimes drying. You have other types of alcohol, cetyl alcohol or cetyl alcohol, things like that. These are used mainly in emulsifiers. But the word alcohol itself there, it doesn't mean that you're putting a rubbing alcohol. They're completely chemical name of it, but it doesn't mean it's alcohol, I shouldn't be using that. That's not the case. So when you have other alcohol, like for example, witch hazel has some alcohol, but it's dried from the plant. It has some drying effect. That's why when you see alcohol-based products, they normally have a lot of moisturizers in it. Sometimes, for example, glycols, glycerin, these are what we call humectants. Sodium hyaluronic acid, for example, they have a lot of all these humectants in it to counter the dryness that comes from the alcohol. So alcohol itself is not bad, but the alcohol as a concept that is not the same thing as what goes in the ingredient. It has completely different chemical structure in it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Right. And just to kind of pull that thread a little bit more, some alcohols are fatty acids and can actually help the skin retain hydration.
Correct.
So, I think that could almost be another topic of a podcast too. And I think the concern for clients is that alcohol can be the drying alcohol. And that's the SD alcohols. That's the alcohols that can pull hydration out of the skin, can dry out the hair, that are typically found in toners or in sheet mask, that yes, they have to top load them with so many humectants to counterbalance it. So there are definitely two different types of alcohol and the benefits of their main function for the skin.
Definitely, because a lot of the emulsifiers, what we call agents that combine the oil and the water to make a beautiful cream, a lot of them have what they call the alcohol in it, but that's not the alcohol that you know it, because their total agent is their total function is completely different, as you mentioned, is actually prevent the water loss from your skin. So they're ester based. So we're getting to more technical stuff, but we can safe to say the alcohol word itself and how it's used is completely different in chemical way. Yes, there is the normal alcohol, which we shouldn't be adding into our skincare anyway.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned also EcoCert, which I think that's going to be a great podcast topic on the different types of certifications that companies can vet to be able to have a stamp on the box, which you do have to pay for that. And the primary one I want to speak to is I don't know the technical name, the open jar.
Yes, the open jar.
Yeah, that is an international symbol. I know you can find it, Algenist products is on the bottom. Some companies will put it on the back. And it's literally a picture of a jar with its lid popped open. It's a little infographic photograph or picture. And there's going to be different numbers on there. Can you speak to the different numbers and what that means?
Yes. So that means this actually shows the shelf life of your product. So open jar technically means when you open the product, as it shows, when you open it, the jar is opened. And then you have a number in it, it's called 6M or 12M. So 6M means 6 months, 12 months means 12 months. So what it's saying to you, once you open that product, it has now 6 months shelf life. So anything normally you wouldn't see, that's why you don't normally see expired some cosmetic ingredients. So they had that logo instead. So the moment you open it, you should make a note, oh, I opened it last month, so technically it has another 5 months to go. So you need to finish it. And normally that's why cosmetic ingredients are quite small amounts, because if it's a really big amount, are you going to use it for 6 months? What if you don't use it every day? It stays there. That's why they make it in small amounts. So technically, that means the shelf life of your product once you open it. That's the name. That's the symbol it indicates.
Love that. And I do want to make a special point that with the trend that has come maybe last year, so I still see it a little bit of people having the small refrigerators that they want to keep their skincare in. Cosmetic companies are not getting those certifications thinking that you're going to have a refrigerator to put it in.
Okay.
If a product has to be refrigerated, it would be noted. And that's not a common thing for 99% of the products that you're going to find in store. I'd probably even say 100%. So it's not required to have to refrigerate your skincare.
You don't have to, but it's beneficial because what it does, don't forget that all these extracts and oils, especially has oil in it, refrigerating it helps with the oxidization, because don't forget, right, when you expose this cream, like let's say as a random cream here, so it comes in a dark bottle like this, right? So why is this like that? It protects the light, because light has UV elements, your heat or anything like that. You don't want the cream. So ideally you want your cream to stay stable. So how it's been produced, we just want to keep it like that. That's why you add preservatives. That's why you want to protect it. With the oil, and most of the time you'll see like some companies make it like glasses, like transparent glass, just to make things more colorful. You can, obviously, if it's an oil, it's not ideal to put in a, like, gets all the sun damage. So ideally putting them in a refrigerator is good, because you're actually extending the shelf life and keeping it stable. But if it's, especially like if you live in a hot country, And if you have a coconut-based product, it will go liquid because coconut, it doesn't stay after liquid after 40 degrees, you know, it's going to be all liquid. So that's why it's keeping it in refrigerator is a good idea. Obviously, not all, if you don't have the opportunity, just use it as quickly as possible.
Right. Yeah. And also in hot countries with the fluctuation of the temperature, it could affect the longevity of the product itself.
Yeah.
And you don't want to put rancid smelling coconut oil on your face anyway.
No. Yes.
But I do love putting some of my products. I don't put all my products in the refrigerator, but face sprays, I love putting those in the refrigerator because especially in the summertime when it's super hot, it just gives you like that really cooling effect that I love.
Yeah.
And also for eye cream, it's like, you know, it just gives you a little bit of that help with the cooling, or eye gels rather.
Yeah, definitely, because cooling eye creams, everybody needs it. We just get so puffy on the eyes, you know, our eyes get tired.
Yeah, and some hydrating mask as well, because if you've been out in the sun and then your face is really, really hot, and then it's really nice to put on that cooling mask when it's cold also from the refrigerator.
Yes, definitely. Agreed.
So we talked about product life once it's opened. What about when it's unopened? How long can you store a product, given that you're storing it in a controlled temperature?
Well, normally, I mean, you will see the product, I mean, cosmetic companies doesn't have a shelf. They don't really put a shelf life. Like you don't have an expiry date on these things. Normally, if you don't open it, it should stay stable for a very long time, 2, maybe up to 3 years. It can stay stable. It's when you expose it to elements, then the product gets started to get obviously elements, exposure to air, exposure to environment, you know, all this kind of. So if it's not opened, it should technically stay for a very, very long time. I can't say this for every product, how long it's going to stay. But when they're out of the factory and they're in the beautiful packaging and bottles and everything, they should technically stay for a long, long time, unspoiled, and have a good longevity. Yeah. But I can't say for everybody. If you ask me, like, what about this product? What do you think the shelf life? I can't really tell you because it's all when the manufacturer, how they've been manufactured, and you have to read the description of it. But that's why you don't normally see an expiry date on a cosmetic product.
True.
They should technically stay a long time.
It definitely should. Now, sunscreen is going to be the variable that's going to shorten the time that the product will last, even unopened. And that's where the requirements are to list the expiration date when it does contain a type of sunscreen. Yes, it should technically. It depends. But again, it goes back to the question of whether it's being synthetically made or naturally made. Obviously, synthetically made, they're not going to say it. So they're not going to say that. But they say, yeah, use it. Like, I really wonder sometimes, you know, those popular sunscreens with a really beautiful beachy coconut smells. I wonder if they're not get sold this summer, what they're going to be recycled and they put it again. Probably they will. I don't know. Because normally products have, I think on average, they have 2 years life if they're not opened at all.
Yeah. Also, how do you know when a product is not good? Like once you open it, for example, and it's past like 6 months and like, you open a cream and it's like, oh, I opened it 7 or 8 months ago.
Yeah.
You still use it.
You just have to look at it. I mean, you just have to look if it's gone all yellowy and thick and dried out, and you know that you don't want to put that onto your skin. If it looks awful, you know. Well, we all did it. I mean, before I became formulator myself, I mean, I used to like, for example, like a cream, it's been there for a long time, it's opened, and does it still like a basic, I don't want to say brand names, but let's say basic hand cream, with a famous blue bottle, say blue jar. I don't know if it starts with an N. I used to use that a lot, and that will sometimes, it gets thickened, it gets really, sometimes it dries out. Ideally, you shouldn't be really using it. You just have to look at it. If it works, okay. If it doesn't, and you can also do a little batch test. I mean, technically, we're speaking, we should, if anything expired, you shouldn't be using it. But if you look at the product, if it's fine, and if it works on your skin and you're not getting an allergic reaction, you can probably use it. I don't want to say, I don't want to advocate it, obviously. I'm not an advocate of it, but technically that's why we put it there. Because don't forget that these things are made with preservatives and everything. So they're not supposed to go spoiled that easily. So even if it's after shelf life, it still works because it has protection in it, technically. But you're not supposed to use it, and they're not expecting to use, like, they're not expecting for you to not have to consume the product within that time frame, right? So you're buying something, we can't, what if we can't consume it? Then we just have to, I think you just use your common sense there. It's for every person.
Yeah, I think of it like food. So to your point, if the smell changes, if the color changes, if it does separate, those are all kind of key points that perhaps it's not it's not something that should be applied. I'm really bad about keeping my makeup longer than I should. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, being a skincare junkie and having lots of skincare products, it is hard for me to go through and use the products in the time they're meant to be used. I know sometimes if it's something that was originally meant for the face and it still seems okay, I might put it towards the body and use it there where I feel like maybe I'm not as concerned for sensitivity.
Yeah.
And just kind of convert it to another area of the body to be able to use it.
Why not? I mean, just do a little test, but like batch, no small little test on your skin. If it's like, oh my God, this has gone off, don't use it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm as guilty as you are when it comes to using things, past the open jar date. So I just have to smell it, especially when it comes to lipstick. I have to admit, I have powder eyeshadow that I've kept for longer than I probably should. But because with powder products, it's hard to kind of smell it. Typically there's no scent unless there's perfume added to it. And perfume starts smelling funny, but a lot of powder product, they have no scent. So it's kind of hard for you to tell whether it's okay or not to use. And I'm pretty sure I've kept some things way beyond.
I mean, I'm just going to give a very big, and I know it's not exactly like what good example, but soap, for example, soap, it just, even if past 6-12 months, it still works, soap, for example, because it has different ingredients in it, but don't forget soap is made of oils and you have sodium hydroxide in it, whatever, it doesn't become, but you can keep using a soap after 2 years, it still works. It may dry out, but it works. So it's a little bit similar to food as well. I mean, food gets spoiled way too easier, obviously, but these things, because doesn't have any sort of like medium of these bacteria and things to grow a lot, because they're preserved very well. That's why it can have a little bit longer than that. And when you mentioned, Amira, about like this oil separation and things like that, a lot of companies do their own stability testing, which we say, is this product stable? Because even if they want to have shelf life of 13 months, which is almost 2.5 years, they do test this thing before they bring it to the market. Is it gonna stay stable? Is it gonna go off? And I do it as well for my own products. We do like especially heat is one of the things that can spoil the product very easily. So don't forget that when you buy something, it is being tested by, before they formulate it and everything. So that's why you can use it after 12 months, because they know that if in case this product stays for another 2-year open, is it going to go spoiled? It may go spoiled. It depends, obviously, for every product is different. So
I just thought of something. What's your advice for somebody who's always on the run and they like to put their skincare products in the car?
So just what do you mean? Like what happens in the car if you leave it in the car or something?
Yeah, in a hot car. Yeah.
Well, if it's depends on the product type, Maria, because if it's you don't want to have body butter all the time, but it depends again. It's how it's formulated, how it's if it's you don't want to like a heavy oil based something living in the car. And again, it depends. If it's a hot weather and the car is like I don't know what's in Fahrenheit, but let's say in Celsius, it's 40 degrees in Celsius. It's going to be very hot. It is going to, I don't think anything happens to it. Again, it goes back to stability of the product, and this is tested. But if the structure, if it's an oil base, you may get a little bit more liquidy. But if it's just an oil, let's say you're using a facial oil cleanser and you left it in the car, if it's hot weather, technically nothing should happen to it because oils are quite heat stable. A lot of them are heat stable. And if there's a heat sensitive in it, like for example, rosehip is a very heat sensitive oil, but they don't put that much. I mean, just a very in it. Again, these things are obviously tested for these kind of scenarios, you know, very heat, high cold, and then followed by the sudden fluctuation of a weather change, -degrees to next thing is 20 degrees. These things like that. Technically, it shouldn't matter. Long story short, when you leave you in the car, the product should still stay stable. So if you forget it in the car and the next day you're picking it up, oh, I forgot my lip balm in there, it'll be fine. It wouldn't. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if it's a very oily thing, like a body butter or like a hand balm that is made purely naturally with using all, they may get the structure of which is going to get a little bit liquidy. So you might want to be careful when you're opening up. So check it before you open, you know, if you left it in the car and it's very hot, just check that everything is okay. Everything is still usable. And if it gets too liquid, just put it in the fridge and then make it, cool it down a little bit.
Turn it back up again. I love it. I know when I lived in the Southern United States and was more of a road warrior, I would actually put my lipsticks and my mascara things that I was going to touch up with and a hand cream in my cooler that I meal prep with me. So that way they would stay nice and cool in the heat because very, very hot and humid in the Southern United States.
Ideally you shouldn't really leave it on the car. I mean, and ideally don't leave it. But if you leave it for a couple of days, it happens that you forgot it. I don't think it's the end of the world.
I love it. I love it. So in having our preservatives, there are certainly synthetic options. There are natural options. Yeah. I think ultimately it's important to do research on our own to educate ourselves on how these products are going to last for us. Yeah. And to certainly try to use them within their time, within reason. I do want to mention that in using products that are designed to offer some type of additional benefit, the company is going to test those benefits within the time frame there. So if it's been a couple of years that you've had it, that brightening or texture, you know, benefit may not have its validity because that's not what it was tested for. Yeah. But well, it's been so wonderful to have you on. I look forward to the next podcast together. Ideas are definitely blooming.
Yes, I just want to add, as training, I mean, educating yourself is lies with everything. Just be curious, read the ingredients. Anything that sounds a bit dodgy, you might want to Google it and then see what this is for. Just all the time, just be open-minded and be curious and read the ingredients. That's all I can say.
Yes. It was wonderful talking with you, Tuna.
No, welcome. I'm really happy to be here. Always glad to see you too. Yes, and anyhow, if anybody has questions about this, they can also contact me, and they can send me a message on Instagram or from YouTube. Anything you want to, if there's a specific question about preservatives, to let me know.
I love it. And we'll certainly tag your website, your Etsy shop. Congratulations on being an international available company now. Yes. That's offered on Emilu Boutique here in the US. So thank you so much for joining the Skincare and Food Podcast. Let's grow together.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's good to see you again. Take care. And until I see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.